Okay, sure thing. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, yeah. In the worst case, just drop it in the driveway. Break up. For a few days. Nobody's gonna seal it. It's pretty heavy, but you really put it in this wedge.
Hey. Okay. We on? All right, I'm going to assume that we're on, and welcome to the book chat. My name's Diana Gabaldon. Happy to not quite see all of you here, but I'm sure that you are there. Thanks very much. I'm sorry for the delay in getting things going. They told me they had quite a heavy influx of traffic, so thanks to all of you for being here. I'm not sure what you would like to start with. I'm not seeing anything in my live chat window underneath, but I could start by answering a couple of the questions that people had emailed in earlier. One person asked me how much research did I do when I went to Scotland. Well, originally I wrote Outlander from library research alone. I was writing the book for practice, not telling anyone what I was doing, including my husband. And so I couldn't very well announce that I needed to go to Scotland for several months to do research. So I wrote the entire first book just from library research, which actually worked pretty well. But then when we sold the first book and got a 3-book contract, I said to my husband, well, I think I must really go and see the place. And so we did go for a couple of weeks, did quite a bit of driving around and buying books and looking at things and smelling the plants and so forth. The only thing that you really can't get from library research about a well-known place like Scotland, at least, is how things smell, because it's not something people ever writes down. So I went around sniffing things quite a lot. That same person asked me, did I meet anyone there on whom I based any of my characters? No. Actually, I don't base characters on real people at all, with 2 exceptions. One of those is, of course, the historical people. The ones like Bonnie Prince Charlie and Benedict Arnold, who were actually there at the time. You kind of have to base them on their real equivalents. And what I do with them is to do quite a lot of research. If possible, I find journals and newspapers and things that these people actually wrote, because that's the best way of learning about a person, is to hear what they have to say for themselves. The other exception are friends of mine that I write into the books as jokes. There are a number of people whose names and occasionally whose physical personas I borrow just to be funny. They don't actually usually resemble personally the people that they're representing in the books. As I say, it's just sort of an in-joke. But there are usually a few of those. In Scottish Prisoner, for instance, the aged mayor who looks like a cow, that is actually an acquaintance of mine from CompuServe, who's known as Bedelia online. And she appeared appreciative of being ridden by Jamie, let's just put it that way. Anyway, I'm still not seeing any questions coming up here in my live chat window, so I'm kind of hoping we'll get a few in a moment. I'll have to switch back a minute to my Gmail. Okay, I have seen my question. Any further plans to adopt or append the Outlander series in a graphic novel format? The Exile was beautifully done. And that's from Jen H., BookTrib member name, Lost in a Great Book. Well, thank you, Jen. I really enjoyed the Exile. It was a lot of fun to put together. I was interested in doing it to start with because I used to write comic books for Walt Disney, and I've always enjoyed the format. So when graphic novels became popular a few years ago, I said to my agent, well, you know, if anyone ever wanted me to write one, I'd love to do that. And so along came Betsy Mitchell from Del Rey and said, hey, you want to write a graphic novel for me? To which I said, well, sure, why not? And so that's how that one came about. Now, I did enjoy it a lot, really loved seeing Huang Nguyen's beautiful drawings and the way that he translated my script. Now, I did write the entire script myself. There's 2 ways of working with a graphic novel artist. One of those, Huang told me, is for the author to sort of draw up just a summary of the action and of what happens in the story, and then leave it to the artist how to translate that into action and lay out the pages with the various bits and pieces so that you can follow the flow in a visual image. I came from the Disney tradition where the author actually lays out the page. That is, I would decide in each panel what was happening, what the angle of reference was. You know, is it background action? Is someone in the foreground? What's going on in the middle distance? And I would describe that fairly in a fairly detailed fashion, and then the artist would draw that according to my instructions. So since that was kind of my habit, Wang and I worked that way as well. So I did in fact lay out the flow of the story in images, and Wang drew them. Though I gave him a lot of leeway because he's a very talented artist, and so I'd always say, well, you know, if you can think of a better way of showing this, by all means do that. And occasionally I would say, well, we got a 2-page spread here where something really exciting has happened, and you know, this is what I want to happen, you know, go for it and do it any way you like. And he did just beautiful things with that. I was very pleased with that. Now, whether they, that is, they meaning the publisher, will be interested in doing that again, I don't know. It was a very successful graphic novel. It opened at #1 on the New York Times list, stayed there at #1 for 3 weeks, stayed on the list for 17 weeks total, which is very good. Sold out its first print run. I think it's been back for 3 print runs so far, so very successful. But it's still sort of peanuts by comparison to one of the big Outlander novels. So I don't know whether they, well, actually they're not breathing down my neck for another graphic novel because they want me to finish writing the next big Jamie and Claire novel, which leads us rather naturally to what I'm sure a number of people would want to be asking if I were seeing their questions, and that is, when is the next book coming along? Well, of course you know that you've just gotten Scottish Prisoner. This is sort of a hybrid novel. Scottish Prisoner is a book that is midway between the big Outlander novels and the shorter Lord John novels. That is, it is about half and half, Jamie Fraser and Lord John. It's set in 1760, during the time when Jamie was a prisoner of war at Hellwater, and Lord John runs into a situation where he is obliged to translate a document that is written in some unknown language. Neither he nor his brother can recognize it, but his brother's wife does. She says it's in Erse, which was an old-fashioned term for Scottish Gaelic, and for Irish Gaelic for that matter. And so Hal, Lord John's brother, says, well, who do you know who can speak Erse? How about that prisoner of yours up at Hellwater? Well, as a result of what happened at the end of Brotherhood of the Blade, Lord John and Jamie have not been on speaking terms for more than a year, and Lord John is not going to have anything to do with Jamie. Hal, on the other hand, is a very high-handed person and inclined to get his own way, and he basically sends up to Hellwater and has Jamie brought down to translate the document. Anyway, one thing leads to another, and in the fullness of time, Jamie, who, as you know, is working along very peacefully at Hellwater. He may not be exactly happy, but he is at least not cutting sugarcane in the West Indies, not dying of seasickness, and he is fairly close to William, his illegitimate son. Now he's suddenly wrenched out of this, sent off to Ireland with Lord John, and there's another complication involving Jacobite conspiracies and so forth. But the book shifts back and forth between Jamie and Lord John. It's about a half and half book. So the book was very carefully designed so that you could read it without having read anything else. You can, in fact, read it without having read anything in the series, either Lord John books or the Outlander novels. Now, if you are reading the Outlander series, I'd recommend waiting until you finished Voyager, because these events actually fit into that 6-year gap in the middle of Voyager while Jamie was a prisoner of war at Hellwater. But you can actually read it with no problem, regardless. Okay, let me see, what else do we have here? Hello, Diana. I have a question about Lord John. What was the near scandal that sent him to Ardsmuir? Thank you. This is from Pam Tucker. Well, actually, I'm not quite sure, or at least I have some glimmerings, but I'm not going to tell you because I haven't worked it out in any detail. We know that the scandal involved George Everett, who you met in Lord John and the Private Matter, and it had something to do with him. But beyond that, I am not ready to reveal any details. Okay, and that's about all I have showing here. I am still not seeing any questions going on in my window, so I'm sorry not to be able to answer you. I can tell you that one question that people always ask me is, what about a movie? Though they usually phrase this as, have you ever thought of making a movie out of your books? Which the answer is resounding no. Authors don't actually make movies. It's not our business, and we haven't got $60 million lying around as a general rule. No, I should explain how it all works. If a production company, and there are many of them, want to make a movie of your book, they will come and offer you, and you and your agent, a modest amount of money, which is called an option fee. Okay, what an option means is that for a set period of time, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever you agree on, this particular production company has the sole and exclusive right to try to raise $60 million and make a movie. Now, assuming that they can put together the financing in the amount of time specified, then they will come and give you a somewhat larger amount of money, which is the actual purchase price for the film. Film rights, I should say. Film rights normally cover the possibilities of feature films, miniseries, hourly TV, and just about anything else you could think of. Sometimes it includes stage rights as well. In this case it didn't, because we reserved those for other purposes. But it includes just a vast amount of different things. It's a hugely complicated contract. Well, now, when you do an option with people, there is always the possibility that they will raise $60 million and make a movie, which means that you want to be really careful who you do an option with. You want people who have actually made a movie before. About 95%. I see someone is calling me with a technical update. Hang on a second here. Hello, am I just talking to myself here or what? Scroll down. Okay, I didn't even see there was a scroll bar. Actually, it says, no, there's no text. It just says, welcome to BookTrib's live chat with Diana Gabaldon. If you do not see the live video feed above, please refresh your browser. I do see the live video feed, but I'm not seeing anything in the chat window. It says there's 31 online. Please sign in, but it doesn't scroll down. And that's all I'm seeing. You want to? Yeah, that'll work fine. Sure. Absolutely. Okay, sure thing. Thanks. Bye. Okay. Yes, we're still having a technical difficulty. They're going to email me some of your questions, which will work fine. In the meantime, let me finish telling you about how movies work. Okay, so you want people who've made a movie, you want people who've actually read your book, because often people have not, and they just want to make their own man in a kilt movie, so they don't actually care what your story is like. Okay, so you want people who've read the book. You also want people who understand the book. I had one nice producer come and talk to me. We were getting along great until we started talking about casting over lunch. And she said, well, you know, of course, Jamie should be played by a Scottish actor because of the accent, the kilt, and all that. She says, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't just make Claire's character be an American. To which I said, well, then you don't see why I won't give you an option either. So anyway, those are the requirements that you'd like to keep in mind when you're doing option things. We have optioned the books, me and my agents, 4 times since I wrote Outlander, and that's with requests from a lot of people. Every 2 or 3 months we get another one. But as I said, we've only done it 4 times because we are very careful. At the moment, the books are under option with a nice outfit called Essential Entertainment, headed by a man named Jim Kohlberg. If you want to Google him and send him pestiferous remarks about when is the movie coming out, feel free. Anyway, it is under option. They tell me that they're pursuing the ideas both of feature film and miniseries, and we'll kind of see what proves most promising before they pursue further. It's the sort of thing where you don't hold your breath about it, but you just wait and see what happens. And that's my position, so I'm afraid that's your position too at the moment. Great. Yes, the next question is, of course, who would I cast to play Jamie? It's kind of not my business, you know. I don't watch a lot of television. I don't watch a lot of movies. I write books. I know what Jamie looks like. I don't have to imagine him as an actor, and I've never seen an actor who looks like him. I've seen a few who resemble him slightly facially, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is, can this person actually embody the character that they're playing? You know, could this person be Jamie? And that I don't know, without seeing them do it. That's why you have casting directors and things like that. Okay, now I also have absolutely no legal power in terms of casting. The production people are very kind about asking my opinion, but they're under no legal compulsion to take it. Okay, and that's about where we stand with that. Okay, let me go and have a quick look at my email and see what kind of questions we're getting now. Okay, Hula Monkey. Whoops. Back. Another one saying, scroll down on the BookTrib homepage. We tried that one. Okay, here we are. Okay, for now. From Colleen R0924. Any chance we'll get a 20th anniversary edition of Dragonfly and Amber? Well, now that I don't know. I would like very much to have that happen. I would say that the publisher would like to be sure that they would be profitable before they did that or not. So I don't know if a lot of you want to write in and request such a thing. That would probably encourage them a lot. Let me see. Michelle Miller, did you originally plan for the Outlander series to have that many books? Well, no, I didn't. I wrote Outlander primarily for practice. Well, entirely for practice to start with. I just wanted to know what it would take to write an entire book in terms of research and commitment, daily discipline, all that. Because I'd written a lot of things up to that point, mostly nonfiction, though a few comic books for Walt Disney. But I had never written a novel, and I knew this was a kind of a different thing. Still, I'd never written any of this other stuff, from 400-page doctoral dissertations down to software reviews. I had just looked at a few examples and tried one. If it didn't quite right, I tried another and poked it till it looked right. I said, well, you've been reading novels for 30-odd years. Surely if you write one, you will recognize it. So I said, fine, go to write a novel for practice. So I wrote Outlander essentially for practice, and I was not going to show it to anyone, but, things happened, and here we all are. As I got toward the end of the novel, I had acquired an agent by that time, and when I finished, I said, well, I can tell there's more to this story, but I thought I should stop while I could still lift it. And so he went off and sent it to 5 editors who he thought might like it. And he told all of them, well, she says there's more. To which 3 of them called back with offers to buy it. And they all said, well, trilogies are very popular. Do you think she could write 3? Being a good agent, he said, oh, I'm sure she could. And they gave me a 3-book contract. Now, I would just like to repeat that I never said it was a trilogy. I just said there's more. And there is. I can't see how anyone could possibly have read Echo in the Bone and come away from that with the impression that that was the last book. That's why it ends that way. Because at the end of A Breath of Snow and Ashes, people wrote to me in droves saying, oh, we're so sad that the series is over. What will we do without Jamie and Claire? I wrote back to all these people and I said, why do you think it's the end? Did I say it was the end? Does it say the thrilling conclusion? And the paperback, no. Why do you think it's the end? Well, they all wrote back and said, oh, but you wrapped everything up so neatly, we thought it must be the end. I said, we'll see if I do that again. So I didn't. Anyway, yes, there certainly is a book to come after An Echo in the Bone, this being another frequently asked question. It really has a title by now. It's called Written in My Own Heart's Blood. That will be the next Jamie and Claire book, or book 8 of the main Outlander series. The next question is, when will this be out? Probably a few months after I finish writing it would be the best guess. I hope to finish writing it by the end of 2012. No telling, how far I'll get with that, but I'm trying very hard to stay home and not go anywhere to that end, and we'll hope for the best there. Okay, Kay Clark writes, do you have a favorite spot in Scotland? I have lots of favorite spots in Scotland. I'm very, very fond of Inverness, but I also like the Culloden House Hotel and Castle Stewart. I went to the Orkneys on the last trip there, and I thought that was just fascinating. I would love to go back up there. Let me see. Gray Mare says, what is Brianna's exact birth date? I have not the slightest idea. I'm very, very bad with people's chronology. I have to depend on the copy editor to keep track of how old people were at the end of the last book, or I would never know. And Mary Faith Peace writes, Diana, I read somewhere that you are a responsible gun owner. Well, we certainly hope so. In the course of your research for your books, have you ever tried firing any of the historical weapons that you write about? No, I have not. I wouldn't mind firing a black powder weapon, but I've just not been in a position where that was going to happen, just naturally, and I haven't felt strongly enough about it to go pursue the opportunity. I have held muzzle-loading weapons and, dry-loaded them, so to speak, so I know what the physical effort involved is. But no, I've not fired any. Let me see. This is just a comment, which is kind. Barbie, do you already have an idea of what Lord John's next book will cover? Looking forward to hearing how he comes to marry Geneva's sister and becomes William's father, or father in quotes. No, I have a very vague idea, but not much. I don't plan books ahead of time, as I don't think that would be fun. Now, I do have a reasonable expectation that Lord John's next book would cover how he came to marry Lady Isabel, but I don't have that in mind in any sort of detail, and I'm sure that there would be a lot of other things going on in that book as well, which I haven't even begun thinking about since Scottish Prisoner has just come out, and Written in My Own Heart's Blood has now risen to the top of my work pile. I do normally read or work on multiple objects at a time because it keeps me from ever having writer's block. So I have, in fact, been working on Written in My Own Heart's Blood, in a desultory manner over the last year or so, while writing Scottish Prisoner and a couple of novellas and things like that. And now Written in My Own Heart's Blood is on the top, but there are 2 or 3 books still underneath that will bubble up occasionally or be worked on as time and inspiration allow. Okay. T.S. Bryan 31 writes, suggestions for organizing, programs, etc., being able to move scenes around, cut, replace. Well, I don't know exactly how to answer that one. It's not that I'm not organized, it's that I am organized in such a peculiar way that it doesn't probably have any relevance to anyone else. I don't either think or write in a straight line, and I don't work with an outline. I have sort of a networked brain. I've talked to a lot of writers, and about half of us are linear in aspect, that is, we, or they, since it is they and not me, think from the beginning of a story to the end of a story, and they like to work that way. Consequently, they do profit from planning a book out ahead of time. Some of them plan extensively and have wall charts and index cards. Some of them just have, a fairly rough outline of where they're going in the next chapter. The other half of us don't. We write in little bits and pieces which kind of join up as we go along, and I do that to a considerable extent. Well, so I may be writing all of these disjunct scenes to begin with. All I need to start writing is a kernel, an image, a vivid line of dialogue, anything I can see, sense, hear, smell concretely. Then I can write it down in a brief line or two. And I sit there and stare at that, and I take words out, and I put them back, and I move clauses around. And very gradually, the back of my mind is kicking up the compost and saying, well, what time of year is it? How is the light falling? What time of day is it? Oh, is the room cold? Yes, it is. My fingers are cold, but my feet are warm. Oh, there's a fire in the room. Where's the fire? It's over there. Oh, there's a dog by the fire. I've never seen him before. I wonder who he belongs to. That sort of thing. Anyway, it evolves very gradually, and I'll be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So to answer another question, I don't revise as such because I don't blap it all down and then go back and polish. Some people do, and if that works for you, great. I can't leave a sentence alone until I think it looks good. So I will have been through a scene literally hundreds of times by the time it's done, and when I am done, it will be as done as I can possibly do it at that point. And then I will move to another scene. Now, if I know what happens next, I write that, but if I don't know, I'll just move somewhere else where I can see a kernel happening, and gradually all these little pieces stick together. Okay, well, my little pieces, my scenes, each one of them is labeled with the name of the book, a symbol indicating what year it is when I wrote that scene, because it does take me about 3 years to write one of the big books, and with a 3-digit date notation. So, for instance, if I wrote a scene beginning today and it belonged to Written in My Own Heart's Blood, that book is called Jamie 8. So it would say Jamie 8 exclamation point, which is the symbol for 2011, dot D, capital D, and today is the 20th, so D20. Okay, so that's just a unique file name, and it lets me find things easily. Now, I also keep what I call an M file or master file, and all this is a listing of all the files that I have with a few keywords as to what's actually in that file. So, say that I wrote something today that involved Rollo. Rollo is young Ian's dog. Okay, and didn't know what came next, stored it, sometime next year, 6 months from now, I write something else, and this is the scene that goes after the original scene that I wrote with Rollo in it. Okay, so all I do is pull up the M file and do a quick search for Rollo, and that will turn up whichever scenes I have written that in which Rollo occurs, and I can easily pick out which one it is that I want. So basically, that's all the organization I have. Okay, I hope that's some help to you. Okay, wait for 8. Hi, Diana. Was it difficult for you to go back, so to speak, to Jamie's time in Hellwater to write Scottish Prisoner recently, after having moved on chronologically in the last decade or so in Jamie and Claire's story and advancing to the 1770s? What was the biggest challenge about writing SP? No, it wasn't difficult at all. Bear in mind that I don't write in a straight line, and I frequently am writing things that are chronologically completely out of sequence. For instance, in Echo in the Bone, the sequence at the Battle of Saratoga, wherein Jamie's finger is badly mangled and Claire removes it, those scenes were all written 10 years ago, because I knew that I was eventually going to write about the Battle of Saratoga. At that point, I thought I might be writing about it in the book I was working on, and obviously I didn't get there for quite a while. But it's not a problem to me to write things that are chronologically out of sequence. When I'm writing, I'm wherever the action is taking place, and I just adjust for that. So no, it really wasn't a problem to write Scottish Prisoner as sort of an interpolation in the overall series. Biggest challenge about writing Scottish Prisoner? I don't know that I'm conscious of a particular challenge. I was alternating points of view, but I've frequently used multiple points of view, so that wasn't really a problem. I guess it was just occasionally I would, more of a, well, sort of a challenge. There's one spot in there during the chapter called Duello where I actually used overlapping points of view, which is something I've never done before. And what I wanted there was a sense of complete immersion in the scene, so that you were simultaneously in the heads of both Jamie and John, both watching and being inside their heads, and both of them at once. Now, a number of people have been kind enough to say they thought that worked. I hope that it did for the bulk of you. But yeah, that was probably the most interesting technical challenge. Okay, and Dana C. Boyd writes, the format for SP was great. Do you think you will do that again? Well, I don't know. It was a really interesting book to write. I enjoyed it very much. But I don't know that Jamie and Lord John's lives and the events as they happened would permit me really to write another buddy novel, as it were, about them. If it did, then certainly that would be a lot of fun. But, we'll just have to wait and see, because I certainly will write another book about Lord John, and Jamie will undoubtedly be in it in some regard, but I don't know how exactly. Okay, and then we have one for Katie R. Hodig, or Rodig, as the case may be. Do we get to see any more of Jenny's children besides Ian and Michael? You might. I can't tell you for sure, because, as I said, I don't plan the books out ahead of time. Great. Well, let's see. They're running out of questions here. Oh, more questions. Okay. Feel free to slow down, she says. All right. Yeah, it's okay. I used to be a university professor. I'm used to walking back and forth in front of people, which burns up a little energy. But yes, I will try to speak a little slower. All right. Question from Kay Clark. Do you have time to read for pleasure? And do you have a favorite author? Oh yeah, I read all the time, regardless of how busy things are. I always have at least one book on the go, frequently more. Do I have a favorite author? I'm 59. I learned to read when I was 3. I have dozens, if not hundreds, of favorite authors. Let's see, just recently, do I have his book here? No, it's not in reach. I've just been reading Phil Rickman's latest, called The Secrets of Pain. Now, Phil is one of my favorite authors. He lives on the Welsh border, and that's where his novels are set. He has a series. He used to write horror, which is not something I normally read, but I liked his later books so much that I went back and found all his earlier ones, and I really enjoyed even the horror ones. But his current series is called the Merrily Watkins series. Now, Merrily Watkins is a female vicar of the Church of England. She's widowed. She has a sort of an obnoxious but inquiring teenage daughter, and she is the official exorcist for the Diocese of Hereford, which makes her kind of an interesting person. So his books are probably the closest thing to mine that I could recommend to people in terms of mingling all kinds of genres. I mean, each book is ostensibly a murder mystery, and there's a very complete murder mystery in it, but there is also very strong supernatural and paranormal elements running through it, and there's a level of philosophical discourse. He's always dealing with questions like the relevance of the Church of England. Are they a real thing? What's the point of religion in daily life? Is there a point? And what if you are a vicar here and your faith is occasionally wobbling, and things like that. How is modern life changing? What's the point of tradition, and is this a drag on civilization, or is it one of the pillars, and so forth. But I find him fascinating. He also has a very evocative style. His characters are wonderful, very three-dimensional. His dialogue is just great, and they're the sort of books that you can just sink into and wallow happily for days, which is what I do. So he'd be the most recent favorite author that's been up. Okay, let me see. Oh, here's another one from Katie Rodig, perhaps. How do you come up with the names for the fictional characters in Outlander and the rest of the series? Usually I just look at the person and think about them for a minute, and generally they come with names, so to speak. Now, sometimes with very minor characters, walk-ons. My husband says one of the things he likes about my books is that even the waiter has a name. They're all sort of fully imagined, even if they don't have very much going on the page. But if it's a very minor character with sort of a walk-on part and no name comes promptly to mind, I do have a number of books of Scottish Christian names, because you start running through them and you're thinking Robert, George, Duncan, no, I've already used all those. Can we think of something better? Oh, Alistair, that's okay. And so I can pick things out of there occasionally. But by and large, they just come with their own names. All right, and here we have Maureen W11. Scottish Prisoner is awesome, and thank you. Thank you. In the story, you start to reintroduce Rabie. I'm trying to remember if you circled back to that in Breath of Snow and Ashes, or is that a seed planted for a future book? Well, I believe this is a reference to Rabie McNab, who you may recall earlier from Outlander. This is the young boy that Jamie essentially took away from his father at the request of Rabie's grandmother, who was afraid that that her son was beating her grandson, and she asked Jamie to take Rabie into his house as a stable groom, which Jamie was happy to do, but his father had objections. Anyway, that story, and Rabie resurfaces in, or a reference to Rabie resurfaces in Scottish Prisoner. And so the question is, had I already taken this up, or rather taken it up later, in Breath of Snow and Ashes? Yes, I think we do reference it later in Breath of Snow and Ashes, though I would have to go back and check. See, to me, these books are all part of one enormous big story. So if it's not the most recent book that's still fresh in my head in all of its structural glory, I will remember what happened, certainly, but I may not remember exactly where in the sequence of the books that it happened. Okay? And here's one for Zabalegui, Zabalegui. What authors do you like to read? Okay, well, that leads us on further from Phil Rickman and some of the others. Let me see. Well, Dorothy Dunnett, some of you probably are already familiar with Dorothy Dunnett. She's unfortunately dead now, but I had the great pleasure of having dinner with her once in Edinburgh. She bought me a thoroughly Scottish dinner, as she put it. We had smoked salmon, venison, and whiskey, which was very good. Anyway, Dorothy wrote two big series, and I do mean big. Many of the books in her, well, all the books in her first series are the size of mine, and the ones in her second series are just about that big. Anyway, the first series and the two series are linked, though they don't take place in the same time setting. But the first one is, I think, 16th century, and deals with the Scottish nobility and a hero called Lymond of Crawford, who, as Dorothy herself said, she said, I set out to write the romantic hero to end all romantic heroes, and he is very romantic. They are very detailed, very rich books, tremendously convoluted plots. Her characters are certainly three-dimensional, but they tend to be mysterious. She writes from a kind of outside point of view, so you almost never know what people are thinking, which is fascinating to read, but frustrating for some readers. Dunnett is a very specialized taste in that the people who love her are just mad about her. There are discussion groups about her all over the web, but other people just can't get into the books at all. They're looking for something much more accessible, which you can't blame them for. But if you do enjoy, really rich, thoroughly detailed... wait a minute, I must take this call, I think. But rude though that is. Oh, I'm sorry, no. It's actually not. The producer's calling me back again. That's just my stepmother. And I will call her back momentarily. What was I going to do? Oh, Dorothy Dunnett. Yeah, anyway, you might try her books. I believe you can find them all through Amazon.com at least. They're harder to find in bookstores, but they are very good, and she is one of my favorite authors. Now, let's see. Oh, then there's Patrick O'Brian. I love him. Patrick O'Brian has a very long series called the Aubrey Maturin novels. And these are the adventures of a sea captain named John Aubrey and his particular friend, Stephen Maturin, who is a naval surgeon, during the Napoleonic Wars. So these are seagoing history, though quite a bit of the books happens on land as well. They are just the best in terms of characters. I adore all of his characters, even the very minor ones. The plots are just really good. Very complicated, but very offbeat. They don't fit into a genre as anything other than historical fiction. That is, they are not normally murder mysteries, which is the easiest way to encapsulate historical fiction and give it sort of a very accessible structure underneath. No, they're just really good books. I listen to them on audiobooks when I'm out walking, so I'm on my third go-around for those, I think. Anyway, fabulous books. So those would be some more of my favorites. Let me see if we have more questions coming up here. Yep, questions number 3. All right, and they have stopped telling me to slow down, so I must be doing all right here. Okay, here's one for Brianne Holst. Waiting till Christmas for The Scottish Prisoner. Well, I hope I'm not giving away too much about it. My best friend told me she bought it, but is cruelly reading it first. Well, that's very selfish of her. I had one question. Do you find certain scenes in your books more difficult to write than others? Oh, yeah, of course. the very deeply emotional scenes, for one thing. Sometimes you will be writing along and suddenly the scene will just slide into this very deeply emotional material, in which case you just ride with it, you just go with it. But other times you realize that there's something coming up that you're going to have to write, and you just know it's going to be really hard, and you kind of mentally shy away from doing it. For instance, when Claire was going back to find Jamie and Voyager, obviously there was the question of leave taking. How was she going to say goodbye to Brianna? And it became obvious to me that she would write her a letter, that she would try to leave without actually, having to say goodbye in person. They'd already agreed, and sort of taken their formal farewells, but she just didn't want to. Well, Claire kind of shies away from emotional confrontation, even though she is deeply emotionally honest. And so I knew she'd have to write this, heart-wrenching letter, which I was going to say, yeah, anyway, with that kind of scene, I just have to kind of wait till it builds up sort of a sense of mental pressure, and then suddenly the words will show up, is the way I put it. I will start to hear a phrase that I know is from that scene or from that letter or whatever, and or a line, and the minute that happens, I go to my computer and write it down, and that just kind of unlocks it, and then it comes from there. Some other scenes are what you might call technically difficult. I will have written something, I think I know what I want to happen, and it's just not happening, and I'm sort of chiseling away. That's usually a sign that what I thought was happening is not really happening, and I should back off and come back into that scene from a different way, or discard it entirely, and just see how that shapes up later in the book. So I really don't wrestle with scenes a lot, other than in the, picking and choosing and, craftsman-like tapping away sense of the word, which I just do all the time. All right, Nanamagyk, Nanamagyk. I always fear that you will actually take us through Jamie and Claire's death. Peeking, will you? Well, if I was intending to, I sure wouldn't tell you. Let's see, Shirley Younger. Any plans for a prequel to Outlander? Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I actually have a prequel under contract with Random House, and that will be a story dealing largely with Jamie Fraser's parents, Brian and Ellen. Now, as I'm thinking of it at the moment, and it may change, of course, when I get firmly into grips with it, it's going to be sort of a series of 3 linked novellas. The first one would be the story of Colum and Dougal and how they took over leadership of the clan after Red Jacob died. The middle part, the centerpiece of the book, is the courtship of Brian and Ellen and how he took her away from her brothers. And the third bit would be Murtaugh's story and how he got to be Jamie Fraser's godfather. So we'll see how that all works out. It's like number 4 or 5 down in my work pile, but it is there, and we'll get to it eventually. All right, from Redskins 1700. Hi, Diana. I love your books. Thank you. Do you relate to any one of your characters more than another? A favorite? No, not as such. Some of them are easier for me to write than others. Lord John, for instance, is what I call a mushroom, as the sort of character who just pops up out of nowhere and carries off any scene that they're in. He's been like that from the beginning. And so he talks to me very easily, so he's kind of easy for me to inhabit. On the other hand, Clara is very easy for me to inhabit. She and Jamie are both what I call onions, and an onion to me is the kind of character whose essence I understand immediately, but the longer I work with them, the more layers they develop. They become more pungent and aromatic and three-dimensional. So we've got onions and mushrooms. Then there's the hard nuts. Now, Brianna was a hard nut. A hard nut is someone that I'm stuck with, that I didn't just come to me out of the ether. But I have to have them, either because they're a historical character who was important here. Bonnie Prince Charlie, for instance, was a hard nut, but there was enough written about him that he wasn't that difficult. Or they are people that I have to have because of some complication of the plot. Now, Clara was pregnant at the end of Dragonfly and Amber. Obviously, we had a kid. Okay, but who was this kid? The kid didn't come to me. It had to be somebody that I decided on, that I essentially built from the outside, and that's much more difficult for me to do. So I just kind of hammer on them. But well, as your favorite. Let's put it this way. There's a group of local fans who take me out to tea every so often and talk about the books. And on this one occasion, they got started on the character of Black Jack Randall. And they're saying, oh, he's so loathsome. He just makes my skin crawl. He's so disgusting. And I'm sitting there sipping my tea and thinking, you have no idea that you're talking to Black Jack Randall, do you? Because, they're all me. And, I love them all, or I couldn't write them. Okay, Kay Clark. I've been enjoying your hashtags on your Facebook post. Do you get a giggle from them as well? Yeah, if I didn't, I wouldn't write them. Dolly J, Dolijay. Do you think you would move on to a complete different subject away from James and Claire? Yes, as a matter of fact. I have written occasional small pieces that don't have to do with Jamie and Claire. The Lord John books, for instance, were essentially Lord John only. I have written a short story about Roger Mackenzie's parents, Jerry and Dolly, and I've written a fairly substantial novella, is 37,000 words, about young Ian's elder brother Michael and Marceli's younger sister Joan, and the Comte Saint-Germain and Mother Hildegard a little bit. But that one is for an anthology called The Mad Scientist's Guide to World Domination. I don't know when that'll be out. But yes, I also have a contemporary crime novel, which not only has nothing to do with any of these people, but is not even historical. It's a contemporary set in the American Southwest. I have about half of it. That would be about number 3 down in my work pile. So also no idea when that'll come up. All right, Beth, can you give us some of the pronunciations of the Gaelic words? Any of them? Well, there's lemis, or so I'm told, which is spelled Lemeas, and it's what I write in people's books. It means with respect, or best wishes, perhaps. Beyond that, I would have a lot of trouble pronouncing any kind of Gaelic. Now, the nice people who did the Gaelic for Scottish Prisoner for me, these would be Catherine McGregor, who is a Canadian Gaelic learner, though I think she knows a lot more Gaelic than she gives herself credit for, and Catherine Ann McPhee, who is a native-born Gaelic speaker from the Isle of Barra. And Cathy Ann is also a very renowned Gaelic singer, TV presenter, and general all-around public figure. She's also a good friend of Cathy McGregor, which is fortunate for me, as the first Cathy dragooned Cathy Ann into helping with The Exile and with Echo in the Bone, as well as with this project. And the two of them, in turn, also found a very nice Irish-speaking gentleman named Kevin Dooley, who did the Irish bits. Now, all of these kind people did, in fact, record the Gaelic bits from Scottish Prisoner, and Cathy McGregor is doing phonetic pronunciations to go with them. And once that's all tidied up, I will put it up on my website so that you can actually hear native Gaelic speakers reading the Gaelic from Scottish Prisoner, and then you can read it over with the pronunciation guide. Okay, and the next one, Bella Kinwood, 40. Hi there, I wondered if you ever considered learning Gaelic, or if you maybe already speak it. Well, I think I have probably answered that one already. No. San Diego Suzanne. Oh, San Diego Suzanne, sorry. With your Southwest background, have you considered a historical novel series based on the pre-U.S. period of New Mexico with all of its colorful characters? No. People always ask that, and the implication is, well, you have such and such an ethnic background, obviously. You should be writing about that. Why? You know, I'm a novelist. I can be anybody, anytime, anywhere. Why would I be tied to my own ethnic background? I mean, it's common. I mean, people ask that all the time, and I keep wondering, would they ask that of someone who didn't have an obvious ethnic background? You know, you meet your average Joe Blow white person. Do you interrogate them about their background and say, oh, you know, your forefathers came over with the Vikings. Have you ever thought about writing a Viking book? No, you leave them alone and let them write what they want to. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound as though I'm offended. It's just that people do ask that a lot, and I keep thinking it's kind of an odd question. All right, Terry Martini, do you work with Davina Porter? She does the audio of your books. She is such a great reader. I don't know that I could tell Davina a thing. You know, she is a wonderful reader. Now, occasionally there's a question as to a particular odd word that is not in a dictionary, and they want to know what the pronunciation is, or where did I get it, or is it a typo? And sometimes it is a typo, so they do ask. But I have had an earlier Gaelic translator who so kindly drove from New Hampshire to New York to help Davina with the Gaelic in the earlier books. So he was very helpful. That's Ian McKinnon Taylor, a very kind person. Okay, and let me see, what are we doing now? Okay, the last set of questions, we're coming down on it. Okay, Fabu Fan TN from Tennessee. Oh well, when writing and having your scene's ideas go through your head, do you run to your computer to write the whole scene, or do you have lots of post-its or napkin corners around? Well, I just about never have a whole scene in my head. As I say, what I need to write is what I call a kernel, you know, the vivid image, the line of dialogue, and usually I am not at my computer when one of these comes along. I've learned over the years just to kind of crystallize those as, you know, it's like those little Japanese capsules that you drop in hot water, and then they blossom, and you get a Godzilla or a washcloth or something like that out of it. So I encapsulate these little images, and then when I do get to my computer next for a next work session, I just kind of let it unfold, and it will begin there. But they don't unfold in my head. I really have to be writing and have to see words on the screen in order for it to begin unfolding. All right, Zabalegui again, 2012 tour dates yet, coming to California? Well, let's put it this way. Writers really don't just tour all the time. I mean, really, you only do it when there's a new book out. A publisher wants you to tour for one of two reasons, basically. Either you are a newish writer and they want to attract a lot of attention to your book because they think they can kind of break you out, or you're a mid-list writer, but they want a lot of visibility focused on this book that's new to the market. So then they'll send you on tour. Or you are an established writer who normally gets on the New York Times list, but they want to push your book toward the top and see if they can get you to be #1. But other than that, it's they will very rarely send an author on tour for any other reason. It's just way too expensive. And in fact, thank God they didn't make me tour for Scottish prisoners. I was able to stay home and work, which I urgently needed to do. Anyway, this is coming around to saying that I would not be touring in 2012. There's no new books due out then. But I'm trying very hard not to go anywhere in order to stay home and finish the 8th book, written in my own heart's blood. So to that end, I have, I think, 5 dates that I have in mind that I will do, either because it's something that I've already promised someone to do, or it's something that I would really like to do. So I will, for instance, be doing the Vilnius Book Fair in Vilnius, Lithuania at the end of February, because they invited me, and I may never have another chance to go to Lithuania, which will be fun. I will do the Tucson Book Festival in mid-March. Let's see, they're a very good outfit, more or less local, and it's only 2 hours from my home. I can do that. And let me see, what next? Well, the summer I kind of have to keep clear because our younger daughter is getting married in Scotland, but we don't have a set date or venue yet, so I'm not sure where or when I will be in Scotland. And depending on what else is happening there, I might do something, a public appearance in the UK, but can't say about that yet. I will do the Surrey International Writers Conference in October. I've done that every year for the last 19 years, and you don't want to spoil your record. It's a wonderful conference. I recommend it highly to anyone who's interested in writing, no matter what your level of development. It's just a wonderful thing. Okay, anything else? There's one other thing that I had on my list, but I can't remember at the moment what it is. Anyway, yes, I will put up sort of an appearance schedule for 2012, but it will be pretty limited. Okay, Beverly Archer, how much research? What kind of research do you do when writing your books? I'm not sure how to distinguish what kind of research. Nor could I answer how much research, really. I do the research concurrently with the writing. I do know people who say, well, I have to know everything about my period before I can begin writing, which usually means they never do begin writing, because you're never going to know everything. Now, sometimes you do need kind of an overview of something. If, for instance, I know that I'm going to be dealing with, say, the Battle of Saratoga, I find material about the Battle of Saratoga, including as many first-person accounts as I can find. But what I'm looking for to start with is just sort of an overview. What happened? Who were the main combatants included? Who won? What were the dates? What kind of information do we have about the weather? And then after that, as I get into it, I become a little more detailed, depending what I need to know. For the Battle of Saratoga, for instance, one of the questions I would need to answer is, whose viewpoint am I using to tell this? Am I going to use Claire's viewpoint? Because she won't be in the middle of the fighting, therefore we're not going to get all of this visceral, cut thrust, cut somebody's head off, stab them with a pike kind of thing. But since she is on the outskirts, she'll be seeing blood and guts, she'll be seeing wounds and all that, so we get the sense of excitement. But she will be close enough, say, to messengers going to and fro, or maybe working in an officer's tent, that she will hear stuff about the battle. So I could give people more of an overview of what's happening in the battle, were I to use her viewpoint. On the other hand, if I use Jamie's viewpoint, he is on the field fighting, and so we're going to get this very deep visceral excitement and sense of, red-toothed engagement and all that, which is very cool. But soldiers in a battle never know what's going on. They have no idea whether they're winning, losing, or otherwise. All they know is the 6 feet of ground around them. Is someone in it who's trying to kill them? Is there someone there that they should be trying to kill? And that's about what it comes down to. So by choice of viewpoint, then I focus the scene or scenes. The Battle of Saratoga was a big enough enough thing that I think I actually used 4 different people's viewpoints when talking about it, or them. There were 2 battles. But as I got further into it, of course, I would look up different things. If I was working in Jamie's point of view, then I would be looking up the specific weaponry. I would be thinking, how was he outfitted? What was he carrying? What was he wearing? Was he a rifleman? Was he carrying a musket? He was a rifleman. Okay. Well, I happen to know that Daniel Morgan, who was credited with forming the 1st Rifle Corps, was at the Battle of Saratoga. So I went and read some more about Daniel Morgan, because he was obviously going to be an interesting character. And sure enough, there's a little scene featuring him, because he had an interesting and picturesque life. But from that, I knew that Jamie had a rifle. Okay, what would an 18th century rifle be like in comparison to a musket? What else? Well, this reading about the Rifle Corps led me to the death of General Simon Fraser, which is described. He was shot by one of Morgan's rifles from ambush at the bottom of the field. Well, from the name, I already knew that he was likely a relative of Jamie's, and I was saying, okay, so obviously Jamie would have been there seeing this, and so that gave rise to another scene. So basically, I researched what it is I think I need to know, and as much as I think I need to know at the time. But I do have an awful lot of research material on hand, and I will just browse through it, especially if it's what I call a cold day, which is when I have no idea what's going on. I knew how to write yesterday, but I don't remember today, and so I will just browse in search of an interesting kernel. Not everybody does it this way. Most people are much more organized about it. Okay, and Michelle Miller, how many books do you read in a year generally? I've never thought of keeping count, but probably 300 or 400. Shirley Younger, I am rereading the series, and I wonder, when you created the character of Brianna, did you intend for us to like her or not? I don't usually intend one way or another. I just show you the characters. It's up to you what you want to make of them. Though I was actually quite surprised, having written Brianna, to have a lot of women. It's always women. The men just love Brianna regardless, but the women there say, oh, she's such a spoiled brat. And I can think, why? And in fact, so many of them wrote saying that. I took to asking them. I'd say, well, why? What exactly in the text? Show me, point to it. Tell me, what did she say, do otherwise that makes you think she's a spoiled brat? Nobody's ever been able to point to a single thing that gave them that impression. They are just convinced. The closest, or they used to be convinced, they've gotten to like her much more now that she's married to Roger. But originally it seems to be that they were just offended, that she didn't immediately seize upon the idea, oh, Jerry Fraser's my father, hooray, and throw herself into his arms. She's suspicious, she's distant, she's furious when her mother tells her that. She's not like, oh, what, you mean my real father is really this wonderful Highland Scot, and not this old boring professor that I've thought was my father for 20 years. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, well, people can make of books what they want to. Anyway, so from Pythia. Hi, Diana. I wonder, where did you get the inspiration for Jamie? Has he just appeared, or does he have a living role model? Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to you as well. Well, Jamie is himself, he's one of, as I say, he's an onion. He's someone I appreciated. He began, I should say, because I was casting around for a time and place in which to set a historical novel, and I saw an old Doctor Who rerun, which had a minor Scottish character, a young man who appeared in his kilt. Well, that's kind of fascinating, very fetching. Okay, Scotland, 18th century, since I was looking for a time and place. And so I started with no idea of Scotland or the 18th century, no plot, no outline, no characters, just the rather vague images of a man in a kilt, which rapidly morphed into Jamie Fraser. Well, I should say that my husband is 6'4" with red hair, so in fact Jamie Fraser does have a body model, and in fact there are a few of Jamie's lines, like the last line of the Fiery Cross, which are my husband's. So, yeah, it's as close as he would get to a living role model. That doesn't mean that my husband is Jamie or vice versa. All right, now I am to read the highlighted text to the audience. 10 lucky winners will snag a copy of The Scottish Prisoner. Congratulations to all of you. The winners are Nagamagyk, N-A-N-A-M-A-G-Y-K, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing you. Katie Rodig, Mary Faith Peace, San Diego Suzanne, Colleen R0924, Michelle Miller, Redskins 1700, Brianne Holst, B-R-E-A-N-N-E-H-U-L-S-T, Shirley Younger, and Bella Kinwood 40. If you're one of our lucky winners, please email Gabaldon Chat, that's capital G-A-B-A-L-D-O-N, capital C-H-A-T, at BookTrib.com with your mailing address to claim your prize. So let me repeat that. If you are one of these winners, please email GabaldonChat at BookTrib.com with your mailing address to claim your prize. Okay, and I think that that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for coming to talk to me, and I hope you enjoyed it.